Hey everybody, welcome to the channel. Hey guys, we're your hosts, Em and Jay, and today we're talking about episode 8 of season 4 of Netflix's She-Ra. So the last episode was pretty bad, probably one of the worst episodes of the series, but honestly this was just as bad, if not worse. Sorry if that's blunt, but we were hoping things would improve after last episode, but that didn't turn out to be the case. In the last episode, the Horde gained a major victory by taking Selenius, while the Princess Alliance was busy playing detective and mostly horsing around. But now the Horde controls the seas and has a clear path to Brightmoon, so if they don't act quick, Etheria could fall to the Horde. So you'd think the main focus of the episode would be on that, but it's not. Most of the episode is dedicated to the guys horsing around on a guy's night out, while things actually important to the plot are pushed to the beginning and the end of the episode, so that's disappointing. The episode starts with them trying to evacuate the kingdom. Hordak is personally firing on civilians. It is good to see Hordak out in the field. He is supposed to be the main villain after all, but he usually takes a back seat to other characters. Seahawk is showing off, but he ends up getting egg on his face when he's blown up by Hordak, so they have to be rescued by Glimmer. Unfortunately, this is just the beginning of Seahawk's antics. Netossa and Spinnerella are treating the refugees. It's good to see them being active again, even though they don't get to talk, but at least we actually get to see them contribute instead of having them do something off screen. Honestly, we're trying really hard to be positive, because the rest of this episode is pretty frustrating, but it does show the refugees mourning the loss of their homes. It is a real shame that back in the first season, they abandoned their homes because they didn't have any faith in their princess, who seemingly wasn't doing anything to stop the invading Horde, and the only thing standing between them and the Horde was a sea gate, which was failing. Then they came back when She-Ra fixed the sea gate, and they had their faith renewed in the Princess Alliance along with their own princess, only for the Alliance to drop the ball here. This is actually really sad. Granted, we haven't seen Selenius since that episode back in season 1, and we didn't have a connection to it or its people, but it still makes the Princess Alliance look terrible and incompetent. Back in Brightmoon, Bow is trying to be optimistic, saying that they've captured Double Trouble and they can still turn this around. Bow asks Swiftwind what the situation is in the southern coast, and Swiftwind enthusiastically announces that it's all on fire. Okay, thanks for that, Swiftwind. He asks Adora the situation in Plumeria, and she says Perfuma is fortifying the Whispering Woods, and Frosta also checked in that her kingdom hasn't been attacked, but Adora's not optimistic and says it's only a matter of time. Bow tries to change the subject by focusing on what they have accomplished. Seahawk, Netossa, and Spinnerella got the refugees out of Selenius, with help from Glimmer, who didn't tell anyone she was going. Adora gets really upset because Glimmer isn't communicating. She tells Glimmer she can't keep going off on her own like that, which is exactly what Queen Angela told her over and over again. Glimmer really hasn't changed. But that isn't mentioned. Glimmer says Selenius fell because she stayed to look for the Horde spy, instead of going off on her own. Adora tries to protest, but Glimmer insists that Mermista can back her up. Swiftwind asks where Mermista is, so it cuts to Mermista in a bathtub eating ice cream, wallowing in self-pity. I understand this is a stressful situation, but her people still need her, and so does the Alliance. Bow's still trying to stay positive, and tries to tell everyone to check in more often. He tries to address Glimmer, but she cuts him off, saying that she's the queen and no one's gonna give her orders. So Bow tries to speak, but Adora interrupts him. Then Bow tries to speak again, and Glimmer interrupts him. And this is basically their friendship. They've been doing this since season 1. Glimmer says she's going to stop the Horde any way she can, and then walks away. So Adora walks away saying they weren't getting anything done. And Seahawk says this isn't the worst meeting they've had. I'd hate to see that meeting. Bow laments that he's never seen them like this before, and wishes he could help. So Seahawk suggests they should have a boys' night out, which seems like the exact opposite of what they should be doing right now. Bow says he should stay in case Glimmer and Adora need him, but he doesn't bring up that they might be needed for the war effort. Plus, what if the Horde launches an attack on Brightmoon? They did just take Selenius. But Swiftwind is really excited for a boys' night out, so Bow agrees. Seahawk is happy and then mutters something about a secret plan, but then dramatically brushes it off when Bow asks for more information on that. It's weird that he and everyone else was annoyed with Glimmer for going off without telling anybody, and now they're doing the same thing. I guess it's a do as I say, not as I do kind of thing. Still weird though. It cuts to the Horde, where Hordak is admiring his work. Catra joins him and they talk about how the princesses are on the ropes. She discusses their next course of action, saying that once he returns to the Fright Zone, she'll continue marching on the coastal cities. But Hordak insists that he's going to stay in the field. Since Horde Prime is coming, he wants to assure their victory himself. He also wants to face Entrapta on the field, so this is personal for him. Catra's not pleased to hear this though. She asks him what she's supposed to do in the meantime, but after the first episode episode this season, I really don't think she needs to ask. Can't she just do whatever she wants? She literally humiliated him and demanded he do what she says, but I guess they're ignoring that. He insists she does whatever he says, and demands she wait in the fright zone for his orders. Well, that was unexpected. Hordak walks away and Catra starts checking in with the Force captains. First she calls Octavia, and then she calls Scorpia, but then she starts casually chatting with her, which seems really out of character. She tells her to meet her at the Sea Gate after she complains about Hordak because she wants to take a break. But the last few episodes she's done nothing but yell at Scorpia. Maybe Scorpia telling her that she was a bad friend went to heart, and now she's trying to make up for it? But I think she might just be selfish, like she just wants to vent to Scorpia instead of actually being her friend. Or she only wants Scorpia around when it's convenient for her. But she's acting like she never told Scorpia off, even though she did it twice. It's all pretty uncomfortable. The boys go to the bar from episode 5, and Swiftwind finally got his chair, but his character design looks really awkward sitting down. Bo's annoyed because it's the middle of the day and Seahawk said boys night out, but semantics. Seahawk says the time of day doesn't matter because Bo's overdue for some levity. This is still really inappropriate. Without Selenius, it's only a matter of time before the Horde makes it to Bright Moon. Maybe they should be focusing on that? But Bo's depressed because the last time he went to that bar he was with Adora and Glimmer and everything was great. But they were still there because of the war effort. They were looking for a captain to take them to Selenius. It's not like they were there just to party. This prompts Seahawk to break out into a sea shanty. It's mostly about how when things get tough, they'll just take a break, and eventually things will work out in the end. Not the best military strategy. They just suffered a major defeat. You'd think they would celebrate after a major victory, like a few episodes ago. At first, Bo isn't into it, but eventually does get swept up in the song. But at the end of the song, they get ambushed. Seahawk immediately surrenders, much to the surprise of Bo, Swiftwind, and the audience. He says not to worry because he actually hired people to kidnap them. Apparently, his master plan is to be kidnapped so the girls will notice they're missing and then go rescue them, which he believes will boost their morale and get them back into the fight. You know, there are crazy plans, and then there are plans that are so stupid, you wish you hadn't even heard them. Seahawk realizes after they've already been tied up that this actually isn't the person he hired to kidnap them, so I guess that guy just took the money and ran. Oh well, now they're in serious trouble. So the boys are tied to a mast and carried out to sea. Bo tells Swiftwind to use his sacred bond to contact Adora, and Seahawk nervously insists that his plan can still work. It then cuts to what the girls are doing. Glimmer goes to check on Mermista and is upset to find out that Adora is with her, so she decides to leave in a huff. Adora's also mopping the floor with her sword, and I don't really appreciate her using the sword of protection like that, but I digress. She chases after Glimmer, asking her why she's acting this way and insists that they can still fix what happened, but Glimmer snaps at her, and pretty much says that Adora is being unrealistic and they haven't fixed anything, which is weird because that's not what Adora said. She said they were going to, not that they had, so I'm not really sure where she's coming from. Adora counters with some logical points, saying they have to work together to win, instead of Glimmer constantly pushing them away, but she suddenly starts questioning why she can hear the ocean right now, and that's when it cuts back to the boys tied up on the boat. So a couple things. Glimmer has been unreasonable this entire episode. It seems like the power has really gotten to her head, and instead of collaborating with her team, it seems more like she's trying to be a one-woman army against the Horde. Glimmer really needs to get it together. She's gonna end up sabotaging the entire rebellion if she keeps this up. This just isn't how a queen and a military leader are supposed to act. Then there's Adora, who can't seem to interpret Swiftwind's distress signal. The last time we saw it used was in that one Swiftwind short, and Adora came almost immediately after he sent it. Maybe her fighting with Glimmer had something to do with it. Swiftwind says he can tell that Adora is distressed and he should be by her side, but she's just fighting with Glimmer while they're tied up and at the mercy of these bandits. These two situations seem disproportionate. It'd be kind of nice if they explained how this worked, at least a little bit. Like Adora says that she can hear the ocean, so maybe if Swiftwind had been verbally communicating that there was something wrong, she would have understood, although that didn't seem to be the case in the Swiftwind short. I'm also not entirely sure if the Swiftwind shorts are even canon, or if they're just side stories for entertainment. Either way, the boys are left on their own. Since calling She-Ra didn't work, Seahawk tries to communicate with a seagull. He says Mermista taught him how, and hopefully the seagull can get a message to her. He makes these kind of obnoxious squawking noises, and it seems like it doesn't work because the seagull just lands on his head, but it does get the attention of the bandits. They take their masks off and it turns out it's Admiral Scurvy, who I never would have recognized if Seahawk hadn't said said his name. He's actually a character from the original show, but he's completely unrecognizable. In the original, he was an old salty cyborg, but here he's young, buff, and, well, hot. It's a huge departure from his original design, and I'm not really sure why this change was made. It doesn't really have an effect on the story. It might have been interesting to see more characters in different age ranges, cause a lot of the cast is very young. Apparently he and Seahawk used to be friends, but now Admiral Scurvy wants revenge because Seahawk set his last 3 ships on fire. The writers are really into this joke. He plans to turn the 3 of them into the Horde because they have large bounties on their heads. So he's acting more like a mercenary than an admiral. It seems like he's not involved with the Horde, like he was in the original, so I'm not sure why he still has the title of admiral. Seahawk starts panicking and says this was a terrible idea, and wants to know why the others didn't stop him, but Swiftwind reminds him that they were not informed of this plan. They start arguing, so Bo tries to be optimistic again, but I think there's a difference between having an optimistic attitude and just lying to yourself. He says he knows that once the girls realize they're missing, they'll come and save them. They really should notice that 3 of their important rebellion members are missing, but honestly they never should have left on a boys' night out in the first place. Meanwhile, Catra's waiting on the ruins of the Sea Gate for Scorpia. She radios her again, saying it's not like her to be late, and then confesses into her radio that winning hasn't been as satisfying as she'd hoped. But she gets frustrated when she still doesn't hear anything back, so she questions if she's getting the cold shoulder because of what happened the last time they saw each other, and Scorpia said that she was a bad friend. I guess Catra's trying to pretend that didn't happen, but also reach out to her more, although I'm surprised such a simple statement was able to have any kind of impact on Catra. But she decides to go look for Scorpia after still not getting a reply. Back on the ship, the boys are struggling to get out of their bonds, but Scurvy informs them that someone is paying a ransom for them. The boys start celebrating, thinking the princesses are coming to save them. Although they probably should know better, the girls wouldn't pay a ransom, they would just come and fight. So Scurvy laughs at them before letting them know that it was the Horde that's paying the ransom, and he's very pleased with that since he says they're gonna get top dollar. So Octavia's ship pulls beside them, but she only throws a small bag of money at him. That's top dollar? But Scurvy seems pleased. Seahawk tries to appeal to Scurvy, reminding him of their friendship and their code of being honor-bound to the sea, but Scurvy just shoots him down and walks away. Horde soldiers begin collecting them. Scurvy starts taunting Bo, saying his friends probably haven't even noticed they're gone, and Bo starts to lose faith. Back in Bright Moon, Glimmer and Adora are still arguing. They've been arguing all episode. I could understand it if they both had a point, but Glimmer's just in the wrong here. She keeps blaming Adora for all of their problems, even though she's the leader, and has been in charge since the beginning. She says that Shiro was supposed to save them, but the rebellion's in a worse place than ever. But to be honest, things started going south for them at the prom. Frosta let the Horde in because she believed that she could handle it. Then Glimmer didn't keep an eye on Scorpia, which led to her, Bo, and the Sword of Protection being captured, and the rescue mission caused Entrapta to be left behind. Then she joined up with the Horde, made the portal machine. Adora tried to warn her to keep an eye on Scorpia. That wasn't Shira's fault. Adora says she's trying her best, so Glimmer tells her that her best isn't good enough, and says she's the reason that her mother is gone. Except, no it's not. Glimmer's the one who chose to go to the Crimson Waste without telling anybody, including Bo and Adora. They had no backup, no way to communicate with the others in case things went wrong, and then when things did go wrong, she had to waste time explaining what happened to the others, giving the Horde time to use the portal machine, which led to Angela sacrificing herself and being stuck between 2 worlds. So once again, it was Glimmer's fault. Adora is extremely hurt by this and starts to cry. Glimmer tries to apologize when she sees that Adora's crying, but I don't think she didn't mean it. I think she just didn't mean to say it. I know she's missing her mother, but she can't put all the blame on Adora. Adora loved her too and did fight for her. They end up getting interrupted by Mermista. It turns out that Seagull did understand Seahawk and told Mermista about what's going on. She bursts in and tells them she won't lose anyone else, and drags them away saying she's back in the game. But Glimmer and Adora still haven't resolved their issues, and they're probably in a worse spot than ever, but at least Mermista's back in action. It cuts to the boys who are being transported to the Fright Zone. Seahawk asks Octavia what happened to her eye, and she explains that Catra scratched it out when she was 6, and that she'll probably do worse to them. It actually is pretty shocking that Catra would do that, especially since she did it for no reason. I'm surprised she wasn't punished more for that, or that Adora took her side. Octavia was left permanently disfigured, and it must must be pretty weird to have your eye scratched out by a 6-year-old and then have to take orders from that person years later. That's pretty sad. Anyway, Bo's fallen into a depression, and he tells Octavia that he doesn't care what the Horde does to them. He's tried really hard to stay positive and be optimistic for his friends, but nobody else put in the effort, and they didn't even notice that he was missing. So at this point, he's too apathetic to care about what the Horde does to him. Octavia radios Scorpia to come pick up the prisoners quickly because Bo is making her depressed. But she's confused when Scorpia doesn't answer, and I'm confused how nobody could notice Scorpia was missing. First of all, she's a high-ranking officer. On top of that, they must have had a briefing before they invaded Selenius. Wouldn't they have noticed that Scorpia wasn't there? When Catra and Octavia radio her, it seems to imply that she had some kind of mission to be on. So how did they overtake Selenius and overlook the fact that Scorpia wasn't there? But one of the Horde soldiers tells Octavia that they have magic incoming, and the princesses finally arrive. So not only did the Horde not realize that Scorpia was missing, but the rebellion didn't notice that 3 of their members were missing too, because they spent all day fighting instead of focusing their efforts on the war. I really don't understand how either side is still standing. They're interrupted by Glimmer teleporting in the Princess Alliance. Adora transforms into She-Ra while Glimmer frees the boys. Seahawk's ecstatic to see Mermista back in the game, and she says that rescuing people is her jam, so he believes that his plan was successful, and claims he never doubted himself for a minute. Okay, Seahawk, this was still a really inappropriate action to take. Seahawk tries to sing another sea shanty, but Mermista interrupts him, so she can sing a rock remix of the song he sang earlier. He joins in and they kick butt together, so at least they get a moment. It's kind of awkward that they're singing about friendship, because Glimmer and Adora are not on good terms. They still do a team attack together. Bo sees this and is happy because he thinks that they're on better terms now, but they aren't. Of course, he doesn't know what Glimmer said earlier. He tries to celebrate with them, but they walk away. It's frustrating because we've seen their relationship regress over the last few episodes, and it feels like it didn't have to be this way. They talked about their feelings a lot, but what did it matter? They weren't getting anywhere, and the longer things went on, the worse they got. I know DT was taking advantage of it, but I think this would have happened with or without DT. Back in the Fright Zone, Catra rushes to Scorpia's room. She finds it empty, but she also finds a pile on Scorpia's bed, including her Force Captain pin. She reads the note that was left there, and then drops everything on the floor, looking disheartened. I hope she doesn't try to play the victim after this, considering the fact that she was the one that was being unreasonable. The episode wraps up with Mermista giving a speech about how she's going to get her kingdom back, and defeat the Horde once and for all. Also, Bright Moon ran out of ice cream, so there's no point in her moping around in a tub anymore. Well, I guess a win's a win. Meanwhile, Bo watches Adora and Glimmer, and he seems optimistic about them, but when Glimmer approaches Adora, she pushes her away, much to the surprise of Bo. But again, he doesn't know the extent of what happened. Adora's actions are pretty understandable. It's disappointing because we saw this coming, and now things are just gonna get worse because they never managed to communicate properly. Bo approaches Adora, but she says that she's going to find the weapon that Mara was talking about. Hopefully it'd be able to turn the tide for them, and they can finally save Etheria from the Horde. Bo surprisingly dismisses this, saying that Glimmer doesn't need a weapon, she needs her friends. But this isn't really about Glimmer, this is about Etheria as a whole. But Adora says that Glimmer doesn't need her friends, but no matter what, she's going to fix this, regardless of what Glimmer thinks of her, so she basically doesn't even see them as friends anymore. What she said about Queen Angela really cut deep. It basically went to the heart of her trauma. This combined with Glimmer trusting Shadow Weaver was probably the final straw for Adora. She'd grown up being abused by Shadow Weaver, and although Angela was initially but understandably hesitant to allow a Horde soldier into their ranks, she did eventually come to see Adora as like another daughter, and we saw their relationship play out, and losing Angela was really hard on Adora, so it's not surprising that Adora is so hurt and is going to need time to recover from this. But then Seahawk starts singing loudly about how great it is to be friends, and I realize they're trying to be dramatic, but it just comes off as more annoying than anything, like they're rubbing in how fractured the group has become, even if Seahawk and Mermista are blind to it. But that's where the episode ends. I was really hoping they would get into the action this episode, after they spent so much of last episode goofing around and then suffering such a huge loss. But instead, most of this episode was goofing around too. The characters made such ridiculous decisions, which was really annoying because there were so many other things that they should have been doing. 3 really important members of the Princess Alliance went missing, and nobody even noticed because everyone was too busy arguing. Eventually, a seagull had to come to their rescue. They probably needed Swiftwind's call for help to fail so they could just prolong this episode. Plus, Glimmer looked really bad in this episode, and she's already been making making terrible decisions all season. It's weird how in the first few episodes of this season she was kind of treating things like a game. She was complaining that everyone else was having fun in the field while she was stuck in the castle, but now she's the opposite extreme and the power's clearly gone to her head. She's trusting Shadow Weaver, she's ruining her friendship with Adora, and she's not communicating at all with the Princess Alliance. That's not what a leader is. She's probably gonna lead them all to their doom. But those are our thoughts. What did you guys think? If you enjoyed this video, you can leave a like and subscribe to this channel to see more content like this, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye everyone. Bye guys.